In the torture basement of Chicago's most notorious Mafia boss, amid the smell of blood and the groans of a traitor, a 7-year-old girl thin as bones walked in holding a torn red scarf in her hand, her lips trembling. "Please, sir, I just want a sip of water," and what she saw next would change both their lives forever. The basement beneath the abandoned warehouse on South Side breathed with shadows. No windows, no mercy, just concrete walls stained with secrets that would never see daylight, and a single bare bulb swinging overhead, casting sickly yellow light across the floor. Dominic Castellano stood motionless in the center of the room, his black leather gloves glistening under the dim glow. Before him, a man hung from chains, bolted to the ceiling, his face swollen beyond recognition, his breathing shallow and wet. Blood dripped from his split lip, each drop hitting the concrete like a ticking clock counting down Haya's final moments. "I gave you everything," Dominic said, his voice low and flat, carrying no emotion whatsoever. "Trust, territory, family, and you sold it for what? $50,000? The man gurgled something that might have been a plea, might have been a prayer. It did not matter anymore. Dominic removed his gloves slowly, finger by finger, and handed them to Marco, his younger brother, who stood silently by the steel door. He always removed the gloves before leaving. He never wanted to see the blood on his hands when he stepped back into the world above. "Finish it," Dominic ordered without looking back. "Make it quick. Even rats deserve that much." He climbed the narrow staircase, each step carrying him further from the darkness below. But the darkness, he knew, never truly stayed behind. It clung to his skin like cigarette smoke, seeped into his bones like winter cold, whispered in his ear every night when he tried to sleep. The monster of South Side, that was what they called him. 22 years of blood and bullets had earned him that name. 22 years since the night his baby sister was stolen from her bed and returned to them in pieces. Dominic pushed open the heavy door and stepped into the alley behind the warehouse. Chicago's December air hit him like a slap, brutal, sharp, unforgiving. Snowflakes drifted down from the black sky, settling on his dark coat like ash from a distant fire. Somewhere in the city, Christmas lights twinkled. Families gathered around warm tables. Children laughed. He lit a cigarette, inhaling deeply, letting the smoke burn away the taste of copper that always lingered after these sessions. Above the warehouse, a faded billboard advertised hot cocoa. The irony was not lost on him. His phone buzzed. Rosa, checking if he would be home for dinner. He ignored it. He was not ready to pretend yet. Not ready to sit at an empty table in an empty mansion and act like he was anything other than what he had become. Then he heard it. A small sound, barely audible, above the wind. The scrape of someone shifting in the shadows at the far end of the alley. Dominic's hand moved instinctively to the gun at his hip. His eyes narrowed, scanning the darkness. Someone was watching him. Dominic moved toward the sound, his footsteps silent against the snow-dusted concrete. His hand remained on his gun, fingers curled around the cold metal. In his world, shadows meant danger. Shadows meant enemies waiting to strike. But what he found was not an enemy. Behind a rusted dumpster, curled into a ball so small she almost disappeared into the garbage bag surrounding her, was a child. A little girl, 7 years old at most. Her knees pulled tight against her chest, her entire body trembling like a leaf caught in a hurricane. Dominic froze. She wore a dress, if it could still be called that. Thin cotton, faded pink, torn at the hem, and stained with dirt and something darker. No coat, no shoes. Her bare feet were pressed against the frozen ground, the skin cracked and bleeding. Her lips had turned purple from the cold, and her breath came in shallow, ragged gasps that formed tiny clouds in the December air. But it was her arms that made Dominic's stomach turn. Circular burns dotted her skin from wrist to elbow, cigarette burns, fresh ones overlapping old scars, creating a map of suffering that no child should ever carry. Her left arm hung at an odd angle, as if it had been broken and never properly healed. The girl looked up at him with eyes too large for her gaunt face, blue eyes, pale as winter sky, filled with a terror so deep it seemed bottomless. She did not scream. She did not run. She simply stared at him, waiting for whatever pain would come next. Then she began to hum, soft, barely audible, a melody that drifted through the frozen air like a ghost, a lullaby, simple and sweet, the kind mothers sang to chase away nightmares. Dominic stopped breathing. He knew that song. He had heard it 1,000 times, 22 years ago, floating down the hallway of his childhood home. Sophia used to sing it every night before bed, her small voice carrying through the walls. Their mother had taught it to her before she died. The girl kept humming, her eyes squeezed shut now, her cracked lips moving slightly with words she was too weak to voice. It was her armor, Dominic realized, her shield against a world that had done nothing but hurt her. He crouched down slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. The movement caused his coat to shift, and the light from the distant street lamp caught the scar that ran from his temple to his cheek, the mark left by the night he lost everything. The girl's humming stopped. Her eyes opened, focusing on his face, on the jagged line carved into his skin. For a long moment, she studied it with an expression that held no fear, only something that looked strangely like recognition. "You got hurt too?" she whispered, her voice cracking like thin ice. Before Dominic could answer, headlights sliced through the darkness at the end of the alley. A truck screeched to a halt, engine growling, door slamming open with violent force. A man stumbled out, thick and unsteady, reeking of alcohol even from 20 feet away. In his right hand, he gripped a leather belt, the buckle glinting under the streetlight. "Lily," he roared, his voice echoing off the warehouse walls. "You worthless little dog! I know you are here." The girl Lily pressed herself against the dumpster, her whole body going rigid with pure, animal terror. Her humming started again, faster now, desperate, as if the melody could somehow make her invisible. And something ancient and terrible stirred awake inside Dominic's chest. Victor Novak stormed down the alley like a bull drunk on rage, his heavy boots crunching through the snow. The belt in his hand swung with each step, the metal buckle catching light like a promise of pain. His bloodshot eyes scanned the shadows, searching for his prey. "I will teach you to run from me," he snarled, spit flying from his cracked lips. "Ungrateful little rat. After everything I do for you." He spotted the small figure huddled behind the dumpster and lunged forward, meaty hand reaching for Lily's hair. His fingers closed around nothing but air. Because Dominic Castellano stepped out of the darkness, one moment there was shadow. The next, there was a man, tall, still, radiating a cold so deep it made the December night feel warm by comparison. Dominic said nothing. He simply stood between Victor and the girl, hands loose at his sides, his scarred face half lit by the distant street lamp. Victor's hand froze mid-reach. His mouth fell open. The color drained from his face so fast it was almost comical, his ruddy cheeks turning the gray of old ash in the span of a single heartbeat. "Mr. Castellano," he stammered, stumbling backward. The belt dropped from his fingers, landing soundlessly in the snow. I did not know this was your territory. I swear, I was just Victor Novak." Dominic's voice cut through the night like a blade through silk, soft, precise, deadly. "You owe me $200,000. 3 months overdue." Victor's knees buckled. He dropped to the ground, hands clasped together like a man praying at the altar of a merciless God. Please, I am getting the money. I swear on my mother's grave. Business has been slow. I have expenses. This burden." He jabbed a shaking finger toward Lily. "This worthless girl eats my profits. Her dead junkie mother left her to me like garbage. And I have to feed her, clothe her, keep her alive." Behind Dominic, Lily made a small sound. Without looking, he knew what she was doing. Her arms would be wrapped around her head now, her body curled into itself, bracing for the blow that always followed when Victor spoke her name. The automatic reflex of a child who had been hit so many times, she no longer remembered a world without pain. "What do you have?" Dominic asked, his tone unchanged. "To pay your debt?" Victor's eyes darted to Lily. Something shifted in his face, desperation morphing into calculation, fear twisting into something far more repulsive. "The girl," he said, licking his dry lips. "She is still pure, Mr. Castellano, untouched. I know you have connections, buyers who pay top dollar for fresh merchandise. She could be worth more than my debt. You take her, we call it even. Yes? Good deal for everyone." The words hung in the frozen air like poison. Dominic did not move, did not blink, did not breathe. But something inside him, something he had buried deep beneath 22 years of blood and concrete, cracked wide open. A fury so black and absolute it had no name rose from the depths of his chest, flooding his veins with ice and fire. The last time he had felt this way was the night they took Sophia, the night he failed to save her. Dominic's hand moved before his mind caught up. His phone was at his ear, his voice cutting through the night with surgical precision. "Marco, Southside Warehouse. Now, bring 2 men." He ended the call without waiting for a response. Victor was still on his knees, babbling something about prices and connections and how he could arrange everything tonight if Mr. Castellano wanted. The words blurred into meaningless noise, like static from a broken radio. Within minutes, headlights appeared at the end of the alley. Marco stepped out of the black SUV, 2 soldiers flanking him. their faces blank and professional. "Take him," Dominic ordered, gesturing toward Victor. "Break his legs, then his arms, but keep him breathing. I need him alive to talk," Victor screamed, thrashing as the men grabbed him. "No, please, we had a deal. Take the girl. Take her." Dominic turned his back on the screaming man. The sounds of fists meeting flesh followed him as he walked toward the dumpster where Lily remained frozen, a tiny statue carved from fear and bone. He stopped 3 feet away from her. Slowly, carefully, he crouched down until he was at her level. Then he did something he had not done in 22 years. He removed his coat. The cashmere was worth more than most people earned in a month. Black, perfectly tailored, warm from his body heat. He held it out toward the trembling child like an offering. Lily flinched violently, her arms flying up to shield her face. She squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the strike that experience had taught her always came next. The strike never came. "What is your name?" Dominic asked. His voice was soft now, so different from the cold commands he had issued moments before that it might have belonged to another man entirely. Lily did not answer. Her small fingers clutched the torn red scarf against her chest, knuckles white, as if releasing it would mean losing the last piece of herself. Dominic stared at that scarf. Red, faded, worn thin from years of desperate holding. The color struck him like a bullet. Suddenly, he was 15 again, standing in the doorway of Sophia's bedroom. His baby sister twirled in front of her mirror, her new red dress spinning around her like a flower blooming in fast motion. She turned to him with that gap-toothed smile, her dark curls bouncing. "Do I look pretty, Dom?" "The prettiest," he had told her. That was the last time he saw her alive. Dominic blinked. The memory dissolved. The alley returned cold, dark, real, but something had shifted inside him. A door he had welded shut 2 decades ago had cracked open, and he could not close it again. He wrapped the coat around Lily's shoulders. She stiffened but did not pull away. "We are leaving," he said simply. He lifted her. She weighed almost nothing, like carrying a bundle of twigs wrapped in cloth, and walked toward the SUV. His phone buzzed. Marco's name flashed across the screen. "Are you insane?" Marco's voice hissed through the speaker. "She is a street beggar. This is not our problem. She is my problem now," Dominic replied and ended the call. Inside the warm car, Lily pressed herself against the door, as far from him as possible. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark window, a ghost made of glass and shadow. After a long silence, her voice came, small, broken, barely a whisper. "Are you going to sell me like Uncle Victor said?" The Castellano mansion rose from the darkness like a sleeping giant, its stone walls stretching toward the winter sky. Iron gates parted automatically as the SUV approached, revealing a long driveway lined with bare oak trees standing like silent sentinels. No Christmas lights decorated this estate. No warmth glowed from the windows. The house was beautiful, the way a mausoleum was beautiful, grand, cold, built for ghosts rather than the living. Dominic carried Lily up the marble steps. She had not spoken since her question in the car, and he had not answered. Some truths required more than words. They required proof. The front door swung open before he reached it. Rosa Martinez stood in the doorway, her silver hair pulled back in its usual neat bun, her apron still dusted with flour from the dinner she had been preparing. 58 years of life had carved deep lines into her face, but her eyes remained sharp, missing nothing. She had worked for the Castellano family for 35 years. She had raised Dominic and Marco after their mother died. She had held Sophia as a newborn and wept at her funeral. Nothing surprised Rosa anymore. Until tonight. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes widened at the bundle in Dominic's arms, a child so small and broken she looked more like a discarded doll than a living girl. "Dios mío," Rosa breathed. "What happened? Whose child is this?" "Mine now," Dominic said. "She needs help." He set Lily down gently in the grand foyer. The girl's bare feet touched the polished marble floor, and she immediately jerked them back as if the stone had burned her. She stared at the sweeping staircase, the crystal chandelier overhead, the paintings in gilded frames, her eyes growing wider with each passing second. "I will get it dirty," she whispered, pressing herself against Dominic's leg. "The floor. My feet are dirty. He will be angry." Rosa's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She knelt down slowly, making herself small, making herself safe. When she spoke, her voice came soft as a lullaby, slipping into the Spanish of her childhood. "Pequeña, no one will be angry. Come with me. Let us get you warm, yes? A nice bath, clean clothes. Would you like that?" Lily looked at Dominic, waiting for permission she had been trained to seek. He nodded once. Only then did she take Rosa's outstretched hand. In the bathroom, Rosa filled the tub with warm water and helped Lily undress. What she discovered beneath that ruined dress would haunt her nightmares for years. Burns covered the child's arms and shoulders. Belt marks striped her back in overlapping layers, some scabbed, some fresh and weeping. Her ribs jutted out like the bars of a cage, barely covered by paper-thin skin, and her left leg twisted slightly inward, the ankle swollen and discolored, clearly broken and healed wrong at least twice. Rosa pressed her hand to her mouth, but the sob escaped anyway. Lily's reaction was immediate. She scrambled backward, nearly slipping on the wet floor, her hands raised in surrender. I am sorry. I did not mean to make you cry. Please do not cry. I will be good. I promise I will be good." Outside the bathroom door, Dominic stood motionless, his ear pressed to the wood. He heard everything: Rosa's stifled weeping, Lily's frantic apologies, the sound of a child begging forgiveness for existing. His fingers curled into fists so tight his nails broke the skin of his palms. When Rosa finally emerged, her face was pale and wet with tears. She gripped his arm with trembling fingers. "This child was not just beaten," she said, voice shaking. "She was tortured. Her leg has been broken at least twice and never treated. There are wounds already infected. If we do not get her to a hospital tonight, she could lose that leg." The clinic had no name on its door, no sign on the street, just a plain brick building in a quiet neighborhood where neighbors knew better than to ask questions. This was where the Castellano family sent their wounded soldiers, their injured associates, anyone who needed medical care without the inconvenience of police reports and hospital records. Dr. Elena Chen was waiting when Dominic arrived with Lily wrapped in a blanket. She was a small woman in her 50s, her graying hair cut short and practical, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. She had treated gunshot wounds at midnight and knife injuries at dawn. She had stitched up men who would kill again before their sutures healed. But when she saw the child in Dominic's arms, something flickered across her composed face. "Examination room 3, she said quietly. "Now." For the next 2 hours, Elena worked in silence. X-rays, blood tests, careful documentation of every scar, every burn, every break that had healed crooked. Lily remained unconscious throughout, sedated for her own protection, her small body finally surrendering to exhaustion and warmth. When Elena finally emerged, her expression was carved from stone. "I need to speak with you," she told Dominic. Alone, they stood in the hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of antiseptic hanging in the air like a bitter prayer. "This child has been systematically abused for at least 2 years, Elena said, her voice flat with professional detachment that barely concealed her rage. "Multiple fractures in various stages of healing, severe malnutrition, second-degree burns, some infected. Her left leg was broken twice and never set properly. She will need surgery to correct it, or she will limp for the rest of her life." She paused, removing her glasses to rub her eyes. "It is a miracle she survived, Dominic. Whatever monster did this to her was trying to destroy her piece by piece." Dominic said nothing. His jaw was clenched so tight his teeth ached. A sudden scream shattered the silence. Both of them ran toward examination room 3. Inside, Lily was sitting up in the hospital bed, her eyes wild with terror, her hands clawing at the sheets around her. "My scarf!" she shrieked, her voice cracking with desperation. "Where is my scarf? Mama's scarf. Where is it? Where is it?" She was hyperventilating now, tears streaming down her hollow cheeks, her entire body convulsing with panic. The monitors beside her bed beeped frantically as her heart rate spiked. "The scarf," Elena said to Dominic. "Red? Torn?" It was not with her when Dominic was already gone. He ran through the clinic, out the back door, into the snowy parking lot where his SUV sat waiting. The cold hit him like a wall, but he did not slow down. He yanked open the car door and searched the back seat until his fingers closed around something soft and worn. The red scarf. He ran back inside, snow melting in his hair, his expensive shoes soaked through. When he burst into the examination room, Lily was still crying, still gasping for air, still searching for the only piece of her mother she had left. "Here," Dominic said, breathless. He held out the scarf. Lily grabbed it with both hands and pulled it to her chest, wrapping herself around it like it was a life raft in a storming sea. Her breathing slowed, her tears continued, but quieter now, gentler. For a long moment, she simply held the scarf against her heart. Then she looked up at Dominic, really looked at him, her blue eyes meeting his dark ones without flinching. "Thank you," she whispered. Dominic could not speak. He stood frozen, watching this broken child cradle a torn piece of fabric like it was the most precious thing in the universe. And he remembered Sophia, clutching her old cloth doll, refusing to sleep without it. Something inside him shifted, something that could never shift back. Sleep would not come. Dominic sat alone in his study, the room dark except for a single lamp casting amber shadows across the mahogany desk. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing Chicago in white silence. The clock on the wall showed 3 a.m. The house was quiet. Rosa had gone to bed. Lily was resting at the clinic under Elena's watchful care. But Dominic could not close his eyes. Every time he did, he saw a little girl clutching a red scarf like it was her last breath. He rose from his chair and walked to the far wall, where a painting of the Italian countryside hung in an ornate frame. He pressed his thumb against a hidden sensor, and the painting swung open to reveal a steel safe embedded in the wall. The combination was a date, March 15th, Sophia's birthday. Inside the safe, there was no money, no documents, no weapons. Just 3 items arranged carefully on black velvet, like relics in a shrine. A small cloth doll with button eyes and yarn hair, worn soft from years of holding. A tiny red dress, folded neatly, still carrying the faint scent of lavender soap. And a photograph. Dominic lifted the picture with trembling fingers. 2 children smiled back at him from 22 years ago. A teenage boy with dark hair and no scar on his face, his arm wrapped protectively around a little girl in a red dress. Sophia's grin was missing 2 front teeth. Her eyes sparkled with the pure joy of someone who believed the world was safe because her big brother was in it. The memories crashed over him like a wave. He was 15 again, standing in the hallway of their old house, hearing glass shatter downstairs. His father's shouts, gunfire, men in black masks flooding through the broken windows. Dominic had grabbed the baseball bat from his room and run toward Sophia's bedroom, screaming her name. He found 2 men dragging her through the window. He swung the bat, connected with one man's skull, but the other turned, blade flashing in the moonlight, and Dominic felt fire tear across his face from temple to cheek. He fell. Blood poured into his eyes, and through the red haze, he watched them carry his screaming sister into the night. They found Sophia 3 days later in an abandoned warehouse on the west side. She was not alive. Their father never recovered. He stopped eating, stopped speaking, stopped being anything but a hollow shell wearing a man's skin. 2 years later, his heart gave out. The doctors called it cardiac arrest. Dominic knew better. His father had died the same night as Sophia. His body just took longer to realize it. At 17, Dominic inherited an empire built on blood, and he made a vow. He would become so feared, so ruthless, so monstrous, that no one would ever dare touch anyone he loved again. The monster of Southside was born from a brother's grief. A soft knock broke the silence. Rosa stood in the doorway, her robe wrapped tightly around her, her eyes falling immediately to the photograph in Dominic's hands. She had seen it before. She had been there through all of it. "The little one?" Rosa said quietly. "Lily. She reminds you of Sophia, does she not?" Dominic's jaw tightened. "No one knows about this. Ever." Rosa walked closer, her slippers silent on the carpet. She placed a weathered hand on his shoulder, the way she had done when he was a boy crying in the dark. "Perhaps God sent her to you," she whispered. "Perhaps this is your second chance." Dominic did not answer, but his fingers curled tighter around Sophia's photograph, holding on to the past while something new and fragile began to take root in the ruins of his heart. Lily woke to the sound of silence. No shouting, no footsteps pounding toward her, no belt buckle jingling in warning, just quiet and warmth and the soft beeping of a machine beside her bed. She kept her eyes closed for a long moment, afraid that opening them would shatter the illusion. Her body remained perfectly still beneath the blanket, a survival instinct carved into her bones. Do not move until you know it is safe. Do not breathe too loudly. Do not exist too much. Uncle Victor hated when she slept too long. Lazy dog, he would call her. Worthless mouth to feed. And then the belt would come. But the belt did not come. Slowly, carefully, Lily opened her eyes. White ceiling, white walls, clean sheets that smelled like soap instead of mold and cigarette smoke. Her red scarf was clutched against her chest, right where she had held it when sleep finally claimed her. The room was small but bright, morning sunlight streaming through a window she had not noticed last night. The door opened softly. Rosa entered carrying a wooden tray, steam rising from its contents. The smell hit Lily first, something warm and rich, something her starving body recognized even if her mind could not name it. "Good morning, pequeña," Rosa said gently, setting the tray on the table beside the bed. I brought you breakfast. Oatmeal with honey, some fruit, milk. Are you hungry? Lily stared at the food. Real food. More food than she had seen in weeks. The oatmeal was thick and creamy, topped with sliced strawberries that glistened like jewels. The glass of milk was full to the brim. A small banana sat beside everything, yellow and perfect and unbruised. She looked at Rosa, then back at the food, then at Rosa again, waiting for the trick, waiting for someone to laugh and snatch it away. It is yours, Rosa said softly. All of it. Eat, sweetheart. Lily's hands shot forward before she could stop them. She grabbed the oatmeal bowl and began shoveling spoonfuls into her mouth, barely chewing, barely breathing between bites. Her body had learned long ago that food could disappear at any moment, that eating fast meant eating it all. She choked, coughed, kept eating. Slow down, Rosa said, her voice cracking as she knelt beside the bed. Tears pooled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. No one will take it from you. It is yours. Eat slowly, mi amor. Slowly. Outside the room, Dominic watched through the narrow window in the door. His face betrayed nothing, but his hands were clenched at his sides. We need to talk. Marco's voice came from behind him, sharp and urgent. Dominic did not turn around. Talk. What exactly is your plan here? Marco stepped closer, lowering his voice. You are going to keep her? Raise her? You are a mafia boss, brother, not a foster parent. This is not what we do. I have not decided yet. Victor is locked up, but he has connections. If his trafficking partners find out the girl is here, let them come. Dominic finally turned, and the look in his eyes made Marco step back instinctively. Let every single one of them come. I will kill them myself. One by one. Slowly. Marco opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He had seen that expression before 22 years ago, when they buried Sophia. Inside the room, Lily had finished eating. She sat quietly now, the empty bowl in her lap, her fingers still wrapped around her red scarf. Rosa was straightening the blankets when Lily's small voice broke the silence. Will he send me away? Rosa paused. Who, sweetheart? The man. The one with the scar. Lily's blue eyes were wide with familiar fear. If I am good, will he let me stay? I can be good. I promise I will be good. I will not eat too much. I will not make noise. Please. I will be so good. 3 days passed in the quiet rhythm of healing. Dr. Elena performed surgery on Lily's leg, resetting bones that had fused crooked and cleaning infections that had spread deeper than anyone wanted to admit. The little girl endured it all with a silence that broke Rosa's heart. No crying, no complaining. Just those wide blue eyes watching everything with the wariness of a trapped animal waiting for the next blow. On the 4th morning, Elena declared Lily stable enough to leave. She will need physical therapy, the doctor told Dominic privately, and a psychologist. The wounds inside her are deeper than the ones I can stitch. Dominic nodded once and said nothing. He drove Lily back to the mansion himself. Rosa sat in the back seat with the girl, who pressed against the window and watched the snowy streets pass like scenes from another world. She still wore the hospital gown beneath a coat Rosa had brought, her red scarf wrapped around her neck, her eyes never resting in one place for long. The mansion loomed ahead. Lily shrank smaller. Inside, Rosa guided her up the sweeping staircase slowly, carefully, mindful of the brace on her healing leg. They stopped before a door on the 2nd floor, just 3 steps from the master bedroom. I put her here, Rosa had told Dominic earlier, so you can hear if she has nightmares. He had not argued. Rosa opened the door, and Lily stepped inside her new room. It was beautiful. Soft lavender walls, a white canopy bed piled with pillows and a thick down comforter, a window seat overlooking the snow-covered garden, a small bookshelf filled with children's stories, a plush teddy bear waiting on the pillow as if it had always lived there. Lily stood frozen in the doorway. She looked at the bed, at the clean carpet, at the pretty curtains. Then, without a word, she limped to the far corner of the room and lowered herself to the floor. She pressed her back against the wall, pulled her knees to her chest, and wrapped her arms around her red scarf. The corner, the floor, the only places that felt real. Rosa did not scold her, did not insist she use the bed. She simply retrieved a pillow and a soft blanket from the closet, walked to Lily's corner, and placed them gently beside her. Whenever you are ready, Rosa whispered. The bed will wait. Night fell over the mansion like a heavy curtain. Dominic walked the hallway toward his bedroom, exhaustion pulling at his bones. He had spent the day dealing with Victor's interrogation, extracting names and connections, mapping the trafficking network that had nearly swallowed Lily whole. Tomorrow, he would begin dismantling it piece by piece. A thin line of light caught his eye. It seeped from beneath Lily's door, pale and wavering. He paused, listened, and heard it the softest sound, barely louder than breathing, humming, the lullaby again. Dominic pushed the door open slowly. The room was dim, lit only by a small nightlight Rosa had left plugged into the wall. And there, in the corner, sat Lily, knees drawn up, scarf clutched to her chest, rocking slightly as she hummed her mother's song. She looked up when he entered, but did not flinch this time. Perhaps she was too tired for fear. Dominic said nothing. He crossed the room and lowered himself to the floor several feet away from her, his back against the wall, his long legs stretched out before him. He did not reach for her, did not speak. He simply sat there, sharing the darkness, sharing the silence. Two broken souls enduring the night together. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time lost meaning in that quiet space. Eventually, Lily's humming faded. Her head drooped, her eyes fluttered closed, and she slumped sideways, finally surrendering to sleep while still sitting on the hard floor. Dominic waited until her breathing steadied. Then he rose, lifted her gently. She weighed almost nothing and carried her to the bed. He laid her on the soft mattress, pulled the comforter over her thin shoulders, and tucked the red scarf beside her cheek where she could feel it. He stood there for a moment, looking down at her peaceful face. And for the first time in 22 years, Dominic Castellano folded his hands, closed his eyes, and prayed. In the hallway, Rosa watched through the crack in the door. A tear slid down her weathered cheek as she crossed herself and whispered into the shadows. A miracle is happening here. 1 week changed everything. And nothing. Lily had begun to unfold, slowly, cautiously, like a flower testing whether the sun would burn or warm. She still slept in the corner most nights, still flinched at loud noises, still watched doors as if expecting monsters to burst through. But there were small victories. She had started following Rosa into the kitchen. At first, she just watched from the doorway, clutching her red scarf, ready to flee at any moment. Then she crept closer, standing beside the counter, her eyes following Rosa's hands as they kneaded dough and stirred sauces. By the 5th day, Rosa handed her a wooden spoon. "Help me mix," Rosa said gently. Like this, Lily's face had transformed. Wonder, disbelief, a tiny spark of something that might have been joy. She stirred the batter with fierce concentration, as if this simple task was the most important mission she had ever been given. For the first time in years, she felt normal, but normal could not last, not in this house. The nightmare came on the 7th night. Lily woke, gasping, her mother's face dissolving into darkness, Victor's voice echoing in her skull. She reached for Rosa instinctively but found only empty air. The hallway outside her room was dark and silent. The mansion felt enormous, swallowing her whole. She needed Rosa. Rosa made the fear go away. Lily slipped out of bed, her healing leg aching with each step, her bare feet silent on the cold marble floor. She wandered down corridors she did not recognize, past doors that all looked the same, descending a staircase she had never seen before. The sound reached her first, a wet, heavy thud, then another, and a voice, Dominic's voice, cold and flat and terrifying. "You thought you could steal from me. You thought I would not find out." Lily crept toward the light spilling from a half-open door. She should have turned back. She should have run, but her feet carried her forward as if pulled by invisible strings. She peered through the gap. Dominic stood in the center of a stone room, his white shirt splattered with crimson, his fists dripping red. A man hung from chains before him, barely conscious, his face a ruin of blood and broken bone. Dominic raised his hand again, and the crack of impact echoed off the walls. Lily screamed. The sound tore from her throat before she could stop it. Raw, animal, pure terror. Dominic spun around. Their eyes met across the bloody room. His dark gaze locked onto her pale face, her trembling body, her expression of absolute horror. He looked exactly like the monsters in her nightmares. Lily ran. She turned and fled blindly, her injured leg buckling beneath her. She made it halfway up the staircase before she fell, crashing onto the marble steps, pain exploding through her body. "Don't hit me!" she shrieked, curling into a ball, arms wrapped around her head. I'm sorry. Please don't hit me. I'll be good. I'll be good." Dominic stood at the bottom of the stairs, frozen. Blood dripped from his knuckles onto the pristine floor. He reached toward her, and she screamed louder. Rosa appeared from nowhere, pushing past Dominic without a word. She gathered Lily into her arms, murmuring soft Spanish, carrying her away from the nightmare. As she passed Dominic, her eyes met his, The accusation in them needed no words. Lily's sobs faded down the hallway. Dominic stood alone, staring at the blood on his hands. He returned to the stone room and destroyed it. His fists smashed into walls until his knuckles split open. He overturned tables, shattered chairs, tore apart everything within reach. The rage poured out of him, not at the world, not at his enemies, but at himself. When the destruction was complete, he stood in the wreckage, breathing hard, blood streaming down his arms. He looked at his hands, hands that had killed, hands that had tortured, hands that had made a child scream in terror. The question surfaced from somewhere deep and dark. Have I become the very thing I swore to destroy? 3 days of silence. Lily refused to leave her room. She would not open the door for anyone except Rosa, and even then, she pressed herself into the far corner, watching with haunted eyes until Rosa set down the food tray and retreated. She did not speak. She did not hum. She simply existed in terrified stillness, waiting for punishment that her broken mind insisted was coming. Dominic paced the hallways like a caged animal. He had faced rival bosses, survived assassination attempts, built an empire from blood and ashes. But this, a 7-year-old girl trembling behind a locked door, defeated him completely. He did not know how to fix this. He had never apologized to anyone in his adult life. Apologies were weakness, and weakness meant death. Rosa found him standing outside Lily's room at midnight, his forehead pressed against the wood. "You cannot force trust," she said quietly. Words mean nothing to her. She has heard too many empty promises. Then what do I do? Rosa placed a weathered hand on his arm. Show her. Not with words, with actions. Small things, consistent things. Prove that you are different, even if it takes forever. The next morning, Dominic left something outside Lily's door. A picture book. Bright colors, simple words, a story about a rabbit finding a new home. He placed it on the floor, knocked twice, and walked away without waiting for response. That evening, the book remained untouched. He tried again the next day. A small stuffed dog with floppy ears. The day after that, a box of chocolates wrapped in pink ribbon. Each morning, a new offering. Each evening, everything sat exactly where he had left it. Rosa reported quietly. She looks at them through the crack in the door, but she will not touch them. Dominic did not stop. On the 5th day, he did something different. He sat at his desk for an hour, struggling with a pen and paper. His handwriting had always been terrible chicken scratch, Marco called it, but he forced himself to form each letter carefully, pressing hard enough to tear the paper twice before finishing. The note read, "I am sorry. I do not hit children. I will never hit you. I promise." He folded it once and placed it outside her door beside a new doll, soft fabric, yellow dress, button eyes. Then he retreated to his study and left the door open. Hours passed. Dominic pretended to work, shuffling papers he did not read, signing documents he barely saw, his ears strained for any sound from the hallway. Hope battled with resignation in his chest. Then he heard it. Soft footsteps, barely audible, the hesitant shuffle of small feet approaching. He forced himself to remain still. Do not look up. Do not move. Do not frighten her away. A shadow appeared in his peripheral vision. Lily stood in the doorway, her red scarf wrapped around her neck, the new doll clutched against her chest. She had taken it. She had read the note, and now she was here, watching him with those enormous blue eyes that held equal parts fear and desperate hope. Dominic did not speak, did not gesture, did not breathe too loudly. He simply continued writing meaningless words on paper, leaving the choice entirely to her. 1 minute passed, then 5, then 10. Lily stepped into the room. She moved slowly, hugging the wall, keeping maximum distance between herself and the man behind the desk. She reached the far corner, always the corner, and lowered herself to the floor, her back pressed against the bookshelf. She did not speak. Neither did he. But she was here, in the same room, choosing to stay. Dominic's pen stilled on the paper. He understood now what Rosa meant. Trust, once shattered, could not be rebuilt with grand gestures or pretty words. It had to be reconstructed piece by piece, moment by moment, through countless small acts of patience and proof. This was the first piece, and he would collect as many as it took. 3 weeks dissolved like snow under spring sun. The transformation happened in fragments, small moments strung together like beads on a thread. Lily began emerging from her corner, first just to sit on the edge of her bed, then to stand by the window, watching birds land on the frozen garden below. Then, one morning, to walk downstairs without being called. She started eating at the dining table. The first time, She sat as far from Dominic as possible, her plate pulled close, her body angled toward the door in case she needed to flee. But she was there, present, choosing to share space with the man who had once terrified her. Rosa wept quietly in the kitchen afterward. The cooking lessons resumed. This time, Lily did not just watch, she participated. Rosa wrapped a tiny apron around her waist and handed her measuring cups, teaching her the difference between teaspoons and tablespoons, showing her how to crack eggs without getting shells in the bowl. "Today we make cookies," Rosa announced one afternoon. "Your first batch. All by yourself." Lily's eyes went wide. "By myself? I will help, but you are the chef. Understand?" The little girl nodded so vigorously her whole body shook. For 2 hours, Lily measured and mixed and stirred with ferocious concentration. Flour dusted her hair. Chocolate smeared her cheek. She looked more alive than Dominic had ever seen her, her small hands working the dough like she was sculpting something sacred. The cookies came out burned on the edges and raw in the middle. Lily carried a plate to Dominic's study, her steps careful, her expression caught between pride and terror. She stopped in the doorway, suddenly uncertain. "I made these," she said quietly. "For you." Dominic set down his pen. He took a cookie from the plate, bit into it without hesitation, and chewed slowly. The taste was somewhere between charcoal and unbaked batter. It was possibly the worst thing he had ever put in his mouth. "Delicious," he said. "Best cookie I have ever eaten." Lily smiled. Not the careful, frightened, almost smile she had offered before, a real smile. Wide and bright and completely unguarded, transforming her thin face into something radiant. Dominic's chest constricted. That smile, those missing front teeth, those crinkled eyes looked exactly like Sophia's. He ate every cookie on the plate. Changes rippled through the mansion. Dominic began coming home for dinner every night. He moved all interrogations to the warehouse, far from innocent ears. He learned to lower his voice, to move more slowly, to knock before entering rooms. Marco noticed but said nothing. He simply watched his brother become someone unrecognizable, someone softer, someone almost human. The nightmare came on a Tuesday. Lily's scream tore through the silent house at 2 a.m. Dominic was out of bed before his eyes fully opened, running down the hallway, his bare feet pounding against cold marble. He burst into her room expecting intruders, expecting danger. Instead, he found a little girl thrashing in her blankets, crying out for a mother who would never come. "No, please, I will be good. Mama, please." Dominic crossed to her bed in 3 strides. He touched her shoulder, and her eyes flew open wild, unseeing, trapped between nightmare and reality. He braced for her to scream, to flinch away, to see the monster again. Instead, Lily reached for him, her small arms stretched upward, fingers grasping at air, desperate for something solid to hold. Without thinking, Dominic sat on the edge of her bed. Her hand found his and gripped tight, her tiny fingers wrapped around his scarred knuckles. "Stay," she whispered. "Please stay." "I am here," he said. "I am not going anywhere." She fell asleep, still holding his hand. When Rosa came to check on them at dawn, she found Dominic slumped in the chair beside Lily's bed, his neck bent at an uncomfortable angle, his fingers still intertwined with the little girl's. Both of them were smiling in their sleep. 1 month transformed the Castellano mansion from a mausoleum into something resembling a home. Lily bloomed like a flower finally given sunlight. She gained weight, her cheeks filling out, her arms losing that skeletal sharpness that had haunted Dominic's nightmares. Her leg healed properly after the surgery, and every afternoon she worked with a physical therapist. Rosa had hired a gentlewoman named Maria, who made the painful exercises feel like games. The little girl had started using names. Grandma Rosa, she called the old housekeeper now. The Spanish word abuelita sometimes slipping in when she forgot herself. And Dominic, the man she had once feared like death itself, became Uncle Dom. The first time she said it, casually, while asking him to pass the salt at dinner, he nearly dropped his fork. A private tutor came 3 times a week. Lily devoured books like a starving person devours bread, her sharp mind finally given fuel to burn. She was reading at a 3rd grade level within weeks, writing her name in careful cursive, asking questions about everything from why the sky was blue to how cars worked. For the first time in his adult life, Dominic understood happiness. Then the storm arrived. Marco burst into his study without knocking, face pale, phone clutched in white-knuckled fingers. "Victor is out." Dominic's blood turned to ice. "What?" "Released this morning. Insufficient evidence," they said. "Someone paid off the right people." Marco threw a folder onto the desk. "And there is more. He has hired a lawyer. Claims you kidnapped his niece. He is demanding her return." Dominic shot to his feet, chair crashing behind him. Evidence? Her body is covered in evidence. The scars, the burns, the broken bones, none of it officially documented. Marco's voice was heavy with frustration. Elena's clinic has no legal standing. There are no hospital records, no police reports, no child services involvement. In the eyes of the law, Victor Novak is the legal guardian of Lily Novak, and you are holding her against his wishes. The folder contained legal documents, custody claims, a formal complaint filed with the police. Victor's signature at the bottom of every page, neat and damning. Rosa appeared in the doorway, having heard the shouting. Her face crumpled when Marco explained. "No," she whispered. "That child cannot go back to him. She will not survive it. You have seen what he did to her." "I know." Dominic's fist slammed against his desk. "I know what he did." "Then what do we do?" Rosa demanded. "Fight him? Kill him? He will be expecting that. There are eyes on this house now, police watching because of his complaint." Dominic stared at the legal papers, seeing not words but Lily's face. Lily smiling over burned cookies. Lily reaching for his hand in the dark. Lily calling him Uncle Dom for the first time. "She is not going back," he said quietly. "If I have to burn down the entire legal system, she is not going back to that monster." Marco and Rosa exchanged worried glances but said nothing. None of them noticed the small shadow in the hallway. Lily had come downstairs for a glass of water. She had heard everything Victor's name, the word return, the fear in Rosa's voice. The safety she had finally begun to believe in crumbled around her like a sandcastle struck by waves. She backed away silently, her bare feet carrying her up the stairs without sound. She reached her room, closed the door, and retreated to the corner she had not needed in weeks. Her knees pulled tight against her chest, her red scarf pressed against her mouth, and the lullaby came, soft and desperate, the only shield she had ever known against a world that kept trying to destroy her. The melody drifted under her door and disappeared into the darkness of the hallway. The monster from her nightmares was coming back for her. Dominic found her in the corner. Not the corner of her bedroom where she sometimes still retreated, but the small space behind her dresser, a gap barely wide enough for her tiny body, hidden from view unless you knew exactly where to look. She had made herself invisible, the way abused children learn to disappear when danger approaches. He almost missed her entirely, but the humming gave her away, that soft, broken lullaby floating through the darkness like a ghost calling for help. Dominic lowered himself to the floor beside the dresser. He did not reach for her, did not demand she come out. He simply sat there, his back against the wall, his long legs stretched before him, waiting in the silence. Minutes passed, the humming faded. Then came her voice, small and shattered. "Uncle Victor is coming to take me back, isn't he?" Dominic's jaw tightened. "No one is taking you anywhere." "He will." Lily's words came faster now, tumbling over each other like stones in an avalanche. "He always finds me. He says no one wants me. He says I am trash, a burden. He says my mama left me because I was too ugly to love." She crawled out from behind the dresser, her face streaked with silent tears, her red scarf clutched against her chest like armor. "He locked me in the basement," she whispered. "For days sometimes. No light, no food, just dark and cold and spiders crawling on my face. He said if I screamed, he would leave me there forever." Dominic's hands curled into fists so tight his nails drew blood from his palms. But he did not move, did not interrupt. He let her speak. "When I did not bring enough money from begging, he burned me." She touched the scars on her arm. "He said I needed to learn. He said pain would make me better. When I cried too loud, he hit me until something broke. Then he hit me more for making him hurt his hand." Her voice cracked completely. "Uncle Dom, do you hate me too, because I am trash?" The question shattered something inside him. Dominic moved then, sliding across the floor until he knelt before her. He took her small, trembling hands in his scarred ones, holding them as gently as he would hold glass. "Look at me," he said, his voice rough with emotion he could not contain. "You are not trash. You have never been trash. You are a gift. You are." His throat closed. Words he had not spoken in 22 years fought to escape. "You are my miracle," he whispered. "Do you understand? You saved me, Lily. Not the other way around." Lily stared at him, tears streaming down her hollow cheeks. And then she did something she had never done before. She cried, not silent tears hidden behind her scarf, not muffled sobs pressed into pillows, real crying, loud, raw, ugly crying that shook her entire body like an earthquake. All the pain she had swallowed for years came pouring out in a flood of sound and salt. Dominic pulled her into his arms. She buried her face against his chest, her tiny fingers gripping his shirt, her wails muffled against the fabric. He held her tight, one hand cradling her head, the other wrapped around her frail shoulders, creating a fortress of muscle and bone around her broken spirit. And somewhere in the midst of her tears, his own began to fall. For the first time since Sophia's funeral, Dominic Castellano wept. They stayed like that for a long time, the monster and the broken doll, crying together in the darkness, healing together one tear at a time. Outside the door, Rosa stood with her hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her weathered face. She crossed herself slowly and whispered into the shadows, "Thank you, God. Thank you for giving them each other." For the first time in his life, Dominic Castellano chose the law over violence. It went against every instinct carved into his bones. The old Dominic would have handled Victor with a bullet and a shallow grave. Clean, simple, permanent. But Lily had changed him. And now he needed a solution that would not make him a fugitive, and her an orphan all over again. He needed a lawyer. Catherine Wells was a legend in Chicago's family court system. 62 years old, silver-haired, with eyes like a hawk and a reputation for destroying opponents so thoroughly they questioned their own names afterward. She had never lost a custody case. She had also never represented anyone whose name appeared in FBI files. When Dominic walked into her office, she did not bother hiding her shock. "Dominic Castellano," she said flatly, setting down her reading glasses. "The monster of Southside wants me to help him gain custody of a child. Is this a joke?" "No joke. You are a criminal, a murderer." "I am many things," Dominic interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. "But for that little girl, I only want to be her protector, nothing more." He placed a folder on her desk. Inside were Dr. Elena's medical reports, photographs of Lily's injuries, detailed documentation of every scar and break and burn on her small body. Catherine opened the folder. Her face went pale. She studied each page in silence, her expression shifting from disbelief to horror to cold, professional fury. When she finally looked up, something had changed in her eyes. Who did this? Her legal guardian, Victor Novak, the man demanding her return. Catherine closed the folder slowly. "I have conditions. Everything must be clean. No threats, no intimidation, no mafia tactics. If I take this case, we win it the right way, or not at all." "For her," Dominic said. "I will do whatever it takes." Catherine nodded once. "Then we begin." But Victor was not fighting alone. Marco's investigation revealed something darker than simple cruelty. Victor had connections, a corrupt city councilman named Harold Price, who operated a human trafficking ring behind his charitable facade. Victor had already sold Lily to this network before Dominic found her. The money had been paid. The merchandise was expected. "He doesn't just want her back," Marco reported grimly. "He needs to deliver her. If he doesn't, Price's people will kill him." Dominic's rage burned white-hot, but he forced himself to stay controlled. Violence would come later. Justice came first. "Gather everything," he ordered. "Bank records, communications, every connection between Victor and Price. We will bury them both with their own evidence." Marco hesitated. "And if the court doesn't see it our way, then I handle it differently. But we try this first. For Lily." That evening, Rosa sat with Lily in the garden room, holding her small hands. "There will be a meeting," Rosa explained gently, "with a judge, a person who decides where children live." Lily's eyes widened with fear. "Will Uncle Victor be there?" "Maybe, but Uncle Dom will be there too, and lawyers who will protect you." The little girl was quiet for a moment. Then, in a voice barely louder than a breath, she asked the question that had been haunting her. "Will I have to tell them everything? Everything Uncle Victor did to me?" Rosa squeezed her hands, tears threatening to fall. "Only if you are ready, mi amor. Only when you are ready." The Cook County Courthouse loomed against the gray February sky like a monument to judgment. Dominic arrived 2 hours early. He wore his most conservative black suit, no jewelry, no visible signs of the empire he commanded. Today he was not the monster of Southside. Today he was simply a man fighting for a child who had become his reason to breathe. Catherine Wells met him at the entrance, her silver hair pulled back severely, her briefcase bulging with evidence. "Remember," she said quietly, "no matter what they say, no matter what Victor claims, you stay calm. One wrong move, and we lose everything." Dominic nodded. His hands were steady, but inside, his heart pounded like a war drum. Lily arrived with Rosa, wearing a new blue dress that Rosa had chosen specifically for today, soft, modest, innocent. Her blonde hair was brushed smooth and tied with a ribbon. She looked like any normal 7-year-old girl, except for the red scarf clutched in her white-knuckled fist. She had refused to leave it behind. It was her armor, her mother's last embrace, the only thing standing between her and the terror that awaited inside. Viktor Novak entered the courtroom 15 minutes later. Dominic barely recognized him. The drunk, violent monster from the alley had been replaced by a grieving uncle in a cheap but clean suit. His hair was combed, his face was shaved. He even dabbed at his eyes with a handkerchief as he took his seat, performing sorrow like an actor on stage. "Your Honor," Victor's lawyer began, his voice dripping with rehearsed outrage. "My client has suffered tremendously. His beloved niece was stolen from him by a known criminal. He has spent weeks in agony, not knowing if she was alive or dead." Victor let out a sob. "I just want my little girl back. I raised her like my own daughter." Lily's hand found Dominic's under the table. He squeezed it gently. Catherine rose, her voice sharp as a scalpel. "Your Honor, I present medical documentation of extensive abuse sustained by this child over a period of at least 2 years. Photographs of cigarette burns, X-rays showing multiple fractures, testimony from Dr. Elena Chen detailing injuries consistent with systematic torture." She placed the evidence before the judge, image after image of Lily's scarred body, each photograph a silent scream. The courtroom fell silent. Victor's lawyer paled. The judge studied the evidence for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to Lily. "Young lady, I would like to speak with you privately. Is that all right?" Lily looked at Dominic, terror flooding her eyes. He leaned close and whispered, "I am right here. I am not going anywhere. Just tell the truth." She nodded and followed the judge into his chambers, clutching her red scarf like a lifeline. Inside the small room, Judge Morrison knelt to meet her eyes. "Lily, this is very important. Who do you want to live with?" The question hung in the air. Lily's heart raced. Rosa's words echoed in her mind. "The truth will protect you." Slowly, she rolled up her sleeve, revealing the map of scars that covered her arm. "Uncle Victor did this," she whispered. "All of it." The judge's face went white. "Can you tell me what happened?" And Lily did. Everything. The basement, the darkness, the belt, the cigarettes, the hunger, the breaking. Each word fell from her lips like a stone dropping into deep water, rippling outward into silence. Tears streamed down her face, but she did not stop. Outside the chambers, Dominic sat frozen, staring at the closed door. Every minute stretched into eternity. His leg bounced unconsciously. His jaw ached from clenching. Marco slid into the seat beside him. "Whatever happens," his brother said quietly, "you did the right thing. You gave her a chance." Dominic said nothing. He just kept watching the door, waiting for his miracle to walk back through. The chamber door opened. Every head in the courtroom turned. Lily emerged first, her face tear-streaked but somehow stronger than when she had entered. Behind her came Judge Morrison, his expression carved from granite, unreadable. He returned to his bench in silence. The courtroom held its collective breath. Victor straightened in his seat, adjusting his tie with practiced confidence. His lawyer whispered something reassuring. The network would protect him. The councilman had promised. Money always won in the end. Judge Morrison cleared his throat. After reviewing all evidence presented before this court, including medical documentation, photographic evidence, expert testimony, and the private statement of the minor child, he paused. The silence was suffocating. This court finds that Viktor Novak subjected his niece, Lily Novak, to systematic physical and psychological abuse over a period of no less than 2 years. The evidence is overwhelming and undeniable. Viktor's smug expression flickered. Furthermore, the judge continued, his voice hardening, evidence has been presented linking Mr. Novak to a human trafficking operation, with intent to sell the minor child to said organization. The courtroom erupted in gasps. Viktor's lawyer went pale as paper. Therefore, this court hereby terminates all parental and guardianship rights of Viktor Novak, effective immediately. Additionally, Mr. Novak is to be taken into custody on charges of aggravated child abuse, criminal neglect, and conspiracy to commit human trafficking. Victor exploded from his seat. "You cannot do this," he screamed, face purple with rage. "I have protection. I have people. You have no idea who you are dealing with." 2 uniformed officers moved toward him. Victor thrashed wildly, knocking over his chair, clawing at the air. "Get off me! This is not over! Price will destroy all of you!" As the officers dragged him past Dominic's table, Victor lunged, spit flying from his lips. "You are dead, Castellano. My people will find you." They will burn your house to the ground with everyone inside." Dominic met his eyes with cold stillness. "Let them come," he said quietly. "I will be waiting." The officers hauled Victor through the side door. His screams echoed down the hallway, growing fainter, then disappearing entirely. Silence reclaimed the courtroom. Lily stood frozen beside Rosa, watching the door where her monster had vanished. Her body trembled, but her eyes were dry. For the first time in her life, she had seen justice. Real justice. The man who had hurt her was gone, dragged away in handcuffs like the criminal he was. Judge Morrison spoke again, his tone softer now. Regarding temporary guardianship of the minor child, given the extraordinary circumstances and the evident bond formed during her recovery, this court requires a stable guardian immediately. He looked directly at Dominic. "Mr. Castellano, are you willing to accept temporary guardianship of Lily Novak?" Dominic rose to his feet. The courtroom watched lawyers, officers, spectators, all waiting to see what the monster of Southside would do. "Yes," he said, his voice steady as stone. "I am willing." Lily broke. She ran across the courtroom floor, her blue dress flying behind her, her red scarf streaming like a banner. She collided with Dominic's legs and wrapped her arms around them, sobbing into the fabric of his suit. "Uncle Dom! Uncle Dom!" Dominic bent down and lifted her into his arms. She buried her face in his neck, her small body shaking with relief and joy and 1,000 emotions too big for words. He held her there, in front of everyone, hiding nothing. Behind them, Rosa wiped tears from her cheeks. Marco stood with arms crossed, a rare smile tugging at his lips. Catherine Wells approached, her briefcase closed, her work complete. "You did something today that no one believed possible," she said quietly. "You changed." Dominic looked at the child in his arms, his child now, in every way that mattered. "She changed me," he replied. 2 weeks after the verdict, the Castellano mansion finally felt like a home. The winter cold still gripped Chicago, but inside those stone walls, warmth had taken root. Lily's laughter echoed through hallways that had known only silence for decades. Her drawings appeared on the refrigerator, held by magnets Rosa had bought specifically for this purpose. Her small shoes sat by the front door next to Dominic's polished leather ones. She belonged here now. Everyone could see it. The private school was Rosa's idea, St. Catherine's Academy, a small institution with excellent security and teachers trained to handle children from difficult backgrounds. Dominic had arranged for 2 bodyguards to accompany Lily at all times, disguised as school volunteers. On her first day, Lily clung to Dominic's hand at the school gates, her blue eyes wide with terror. "What if they don't like me?" she whispered. "Then they are fools," Dominic replied. "But they will like you. How could they not?" She had made 3 friends by the end of the week. Her favorite subject was art. She drew constantly houses, flowers, animals, people. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, called her progress remarkable. The darkness in her pictures was slowly being replaced by color and light. The parent-teacher conference arrived on a Thursday afternoon. Dominic sat in a tiny plastic chair designed for children, his knees nearly touching his chest, surrounded by ordinary parents in ordinary clothes discussing ordinary concerns. The monster of Southside, squeezed between an accountant named Steve and a kindergarten teacher named Margaret, nodding along to discussions about homework policies and playground safety. It was absurd. It was wonderful. Mrs. Patterson approached him with a warm smile. "Mr. Castellano, Lily is thriving. Her academic progress is impressive, but more importantly, she is happy. You can see how much she is loved at home. Whatever you are doing, keep doing it." Dominic had no idea how to respond. No one had ever praised him for loving someone. He managed a stiff nod and muttered something about Rosa deserving the credit. That evening, he came home to find Lily waiting by the door with a book in her hands. "Story time?" she asked hopefully. It had become their ritual. Every night before bed, they sat together in Lily's room, and Dominic read aloud while she followed along with her finger. His voice, built for threats and commands, had learned to soften for fairy tales and adventures. "I like our home," Lily said sleepily, her head resting against his shoulder. "It is warm. Our home." The words struck him like lightning. Marco noticed the changes too. "You are different," his brother said one evening, watching Dominic leave a meeting early to make it home for dinner. "Softer, like bread dough." "Maybe this is who I really am," Dominic replied. "Maybe I just forgot." Marco had no argument for that. The drawing appeared on a Sunday morning. Lily presented it shyly, holding the paper with both hands like a sacred offering. 4 stick figures stood in front of a large house with many windows. One tall figure in black, Dominic. One small figure in a blue dress, Lily. One figure with gray hair and an apron, Rosa. One younger figure with broad shoulders, Marco. Above them all, in crooked letters, she had written, "My family." Dominic stared at the picture for a long moment, his throat too tight for words. That afternoon, he hung it on the wall of his study, right beside the safe that held Sophia's dress and doll and photograph. Two treasures now, two pieces of his heart, one lost forever, one found against all odds. The attack came at 3 a.m. 1 month of peace had made Dominic almost forget that monsters still lurked in the shadows. Almost. But the security alarm shrieking through the mansion reminded him instantly that the war was not over. He was out of bed before the second beep, gun in hand, instincts sharpened by decades of survival. "Rosa!" he shouted into the hallway. "Panic room! Now!" Rosa appeared from her quarters, already moving toward Lily's bedroom. Within seconds, she had scooped the sleepy, confused child into her arms and was running toward the hidden room behind the library. A steel-reinforced sanctuary Dominic had built years ago for exactly this purpose. "Uncle Dom?" Lily cried out, reaching for him over Rosa's shoulder. "I will be right there," he called back. "Go with Grandma Rosa, I promise." Then he turned toward the darkness and went to war. There were 6 of them, Councilman Price's men, sent to retrieve the merchandise Victor had failed to deliver. They moved through the mansion like shadows, professional and silent, armed with weapons meant to kill. They had not expected Dominic Castellano to be waiting. Marco appeared at his brother's side, gun drawn, face grim. "Price's cleanup crew," Marco confirmed. "They want the girl, over my dead body." The battle was brief but brutal. Gunfire echoed through marble hallways, bodies fell, glass shattered. Dominic moved with the lethal precision of a man who had spent 20 years perfecting the art of violence. A bullet caught his shoulder. Pain exploded through his left side, hot and blinding. He stumbled but did not fall. The man who shot him raised his weapon for a second shot. He never got the chance. Dominic closed the distance in 3 strides, knocked the gun aside, and ended him with bare hands. It was quick. It was necessary. And for the first time in his life, he felt no guilt. This was not murder. This was protection. This was what fathers did. Silence fell over the mansion. 6 bodies lay scattered across the blood-stained floors. Marco was checking pulses, confirming kills. Dominic pressed his hand against his bleeding shoulder and ran toward the panic room. The steel door opened to reveal Rosa holding Lily tight, both of them pale with terror. When Lily saw him covered in blood, face streaked with sweat and pain, she screamed, "Uncle Dom! You're hurt! You're bleeding!" She broke free from Rosa and threw herself at him, wrapping her arms around his waist, her small body shaking with sobs. "Don't die! Please don't die! You promised you wouldn't leave me." Dominic dropped to his knees, ignoring the fire in his shoulder. He pulled her close with his good arm, pressing his cheek against her hair. "I am here," he whispered. "I am not going anywhere, I promise." Dr. Elena arrived within the hour. The bullet had passed through cleanly, painful but not life-threatening. She stitched him up in the living room while Lily refused to leave his side, clutching his hand through every wince and grimace. That night, Lily would not sleep in her own bed. She curled up beside Dominic on the large sofa, her head on his chest, her red scarf wrapped around both of them like a shared blanket. Dominic stayed awake until dawn, watching her breathe, feeling her heartbeat against his ribs. He understood now, truly understood. He would die for this child without hesitation, kill for her without regret. This was what being a father meant. Not blood or law or paper, just the absolute, unwavering commitment to protect someone with everything you had. Morning light crept through the windows. Marco appeared, exhausted but calm. Price's entire network was raided last night. FBI got an anonymous tip about the trafficking operation. Every connection exposed, every member arrested. He paused. And Victor hanged himself in his cell around midnight. Guards found him this morning. Dominic absorbed the news in silence. "It's over," Marco said quietly. Dominic looked at Lily, still sleeping peacefully in his arms, her face relaxed and trusting. "Yes," he replied, and for the first time in 22 years, he smiled without pain. Spring arrived in Chicago like a promise kept. 6 months had transformed the world. Snow melted into memory. Cherry blossoms burst pink and white across the city parks. And in the Cook County Courthouse, on a warm April morning, Dominic Castellano stood before a judge for the final time. This courtroom held no enemies, no threats, no Victor screaming from the defendant's table. Just soft sunlight streaming through tall windows and the quiet shuffle of paperwork being finalized. Judge Rebecca Torres smiled as she reviewed the documents before her. After thorough evaluation of the home environment, psychological assessments, and the clear bond between guardian and child, this court is pleased to grant permanent legal guardianship. She lifted her gavel. Lily Novak is hereby officially recognized as Lily Castellano. The gavel fell. Lily exploded from her seat. "I have a new name," she shrieked, launching herself at Dominic with the force of a small hurricane. "I am a Castellano. Like you." Dominic caught her, lifting her high, his vision blurring with tears he no longer tried to hide. "You were always a Castellano," he whispered against her hair. From the very first night, they drove home through streets lined with blooming trees. Rosa had spent all morning decorating balloons in every color, streamers across the dining room, a massive chocolate cake with "Welcome Home Forever," Lily written in pink frosting. Marco stood awkwardly by the door, holding a wrapped present that turned out to be a set of art supplies so extensive, Lily gasped when she opened it. "Every artist needs proper tools," he mumbled, embarrassed by her grateful hug. Lily cut the cake wearing a new red dress the same shade as her mother's scarf, the color of hope and survival. The scarf itself hung framed on her bedroom wall now, preserved behind glass beside a photograph of her mother, finally at peace. After the celebration, Dominic led Lily into the garden. Rosa had been busy here too. Flowers bloomed in beds that had sat empty for decades. A small bench waited beneath a young cherry tree. The evening light painted everything gold. Dominic knelt before his daughter, and pulled a small wooden box from his jacket pocket. "I want to give you something," he said quietly. "Something very special." He opened the box. Inside lay a cloth doll with button eyes and yarn hair, worn soft from years of holding. Lily recognized it somehow, though she had never seen it before. "This belonged to my sister," Dominic said, his voice thick. "Sophia. She was your age when I lost her. I have kept this for 22 years, waiting for someone worthy of having it." He placed the doll in Lily's hands. "I want you to have her now." Lily cradled the doll against her chest, understanding the weight of this gift without needing explanation. "I will take care of her forever," she promised. "Would Sophia mind that I have her doll?" "Sophia would have loved you," Dominic replied, "just as I love you." The words hung in the air the first time he had spoken them aloud. 22 years of silence, broken by 3 simple words. Lily looked up at him, blue eyes shining. "Uncle Dom, can I call you something else now?" His heart stopped. "What do you want to call me?" She bit her lip, suddenly shy. "Dad. Can I call you Dad?" Dominic could not speak, could not breathe. Tears spilled down his scarred cheeks as he pulled her into his arms. "Yes," he managed. "Yes, you can call me Dad." Lily pressed her face against his chest, her small voice muffled but clear. "I love you, Dad." Dominic held his daughter, the miracle he never expected, the redemption he never deserved, and let 22 years of grief finally release. "I love you too, sweetheart. Forever." Across the garden, Rosa wept openly. Marco wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, pretending he had allergies. And in the golden light of a Chicago spring evening, 2 broken souls held each other whole. Not rescuer and rescued, not monster and victim, just father and daughter, a family born from pain, healed by love, and bound together forever. And that, my friends, is where our story ends. But the lessons it carries will stay with us always. This tale reminds us that no one is beyond redemption, that love can bloom in the darkest places, that sometimes the people who save us are the ones we set out to save. And that family is not about blood, it is about choosing each other every single day. What about you? Did this story touch your heart? Did you see yourself in Dominic's struggle or Lily's courage? I would love to hear your thoughts. Please share your feelings in the comments below. Tell me which moment moved you most. Tell me if this story reminded you of someone in your own life. Your words mean everything to us. If this story brought you tears, smiles, or hope, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not already, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story. We create these videos with love, hoping to bring warmth and meaning to your day. Your support keeps this channel alive and allows us to share more inspiring stories with the world. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I wish you good health, happiness, and peace in your daily life. May you always find love when you need it most, and may you never forget that second chances are real. Take care of yourselves and each other. Goodbye for now, and I will see you in the next video.